Alex here with a video on AI judges, artificial intelligence judges. This has been floating around for a few years, probably even before COVID hit. It's that old of a concept. I don't know. Uh, there's like these three things that I see floating around all the time. I guess I know where it's coming from. It's just kind of weird. So the first thing is jury trials and family court are going to save the day. I don't believe they will. The second thing is the family court judges just need to go through like training on narcissistic abuse and all that other stuff that's associated with that to understand, which I don't believe is going to help either. And then the third thing is this idea of we just need AI judges. And that's, I guess, recognizing that there's bias that's impossible to overcome. Sometimes I see people talk about using AI judges in any kind of case, but most of the time it's in the context of family court. And I mean, all I can tell you is, as a computer science major. I was going to say computer scientist. As a software engineer, somebody who majored in computer science, it's a big ask of AI to do this. It's just a big ask, and I know why people are asking. They're afraid that there's so much bias in family court that there's no way to get rid of it. And in some sense, whether they realize it or not, they're asking for the judges to rebuke the will of society, because I think a lot of the pro mom bias came from society's expectations. People were complaining like it's just courts are just giving custody to moms. Well, back in the day, that's what people thought should happen. Nowadays, not as much, but it's still kind of there still. But it's this desire, okay, let's put somebody in charge who doesn't have this connection to the public, this connection to lawyers, this connection to their internal feelings, that is just going to dispense justice correctly, because it's just not going to care what people think should happen. It's just going to do what a specific group, fathers' rights, think should happen. It is kind of more mainstream now to think of custody as being a joint custody, or to think of the normal situation in these custody cases to be a joint custody situation. But yeah, I do think that the idea of using AI is a bad idea. I don't think that it's something that people will really accept. I think that people who are in child custody situations who are having bad experiences will be like, yeah, that's what we need. But I think most of the public who has no clue what's going on will be somewhat disturbed by the idea of a machine deciding where children go and live. Um, Sorry, guys, that's just what I think. So, is this mean that there's no like way to fix a problem? No, I just think that you just need an extreme amount of transparency to get to the point where people restore their confidence in family court, and then probably a dialing down of that level of transparency to a more reasonable level, so where it doesn't just suddenly stop and we end up having the same problems we used to have, but to where the public accepts that they can see that the family court is operating fairly and without too much bias, but also that the confidentiality of the family is preserved, because that's just something that's there. It's just something that's there. People care so much about their kids that they want to make sure that the family courts are operating correctly, but they also care so much about their kids that they want to make sure that certain unnecessary information does not bleed out into the public arena. That's all I really have to say about this topic. Is you're not going to solve the problems of bias with a silver bullet. Jury, it's the same situation. Number one, juries do not want to get involved in this stuff. They would, I mean, like maybe like once or twice, but to routinely subject juries to this kind of squabble is going to make people even less desiring of serving on a jury. And then the other problem is there's no way that juries are going to be keeping an eye on everything that's going on in these child custody cases, because some of these child custody cases are beyond insane. And for a jury to be involved in the evidentiary portion is one thing, but the jury is not going to be involved in all of the procedural portions, which in high conflict child custody case are the lion's share of the cases. And a lot of times, a lot of the beefs that people have with these cases have to do with the temporary orders. I would say more than half the time. More than half the time, people are complaining about what's going on in the temporary order, the temporary process, the interim process, and the orders that the judges are entering temporarily. Judges aren't even involved in those. They just aren't. They're involved in the very last step. Let's have an evidentiary hearing. Let's decide who's telling the truth and who's not. They're not even involved in all the other stuff. The discovery, the status checks, the review hearings, They just aren't. So that's the problem with that. Um, I don't know what else to tell you guys except that if you want to get rid of bias and distrust, it's going to have to be a disgustingly enormous amount of transparency for a while, because the trust the public has in family court is so rock bottom. The damage is so severe. And then after a while, stabilizing it to a more realistic amount of transparency that people will be accepting of and at the same time appreciative of. It's just, there's just a balance, guys. If you do too much, if you go out there and you say that you can record any child custody case that you want, no matter what, maximum, you're gonna have situations where the public becomes outraged. Why are like these intimate details of abuse that go into super personal stuff being broadcast? So yeah, guys, that's what it is. And that's just one of the debates that people have, even when you don't consider family court. When you just consider any kind of court stuff, people wonder, to what extent does the learning cross over into Schadenfreude? That's what it is. All right, I guess that's all I have for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to post them down in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time.